Okay, welcome back after the break, everyone. Thank you very much for still being here and joining us today. I'm going to do some fast forwarding to get past some of the analysis and get into showing you some software. But before doing that, there were two particularly, I think, really useful ideas that were remaining in our exploration of the 5 questions. Those being, what does winning look like? Where do we play to win? How do we win where we play? The next one is what core competencies do we have, and what management and measurement tools can we use to track our progress towards those goals? And I want to offer what may be a unique take on, or an intriguing take on tactics for engaging with online influencers. Something that I found really helpful to be made explicit, and that from another forthcoming book, this by Wharton School professor Adam Grant, who has written a book called Give and Take, A Revolutionary Approach to Success, where he argues that the most effective way to influence people who have more power than you do in a particular situation is by asking for their advice. He put together research from a bunch of different fields where, the predatory, pushy, go-get-em kind of approach was quantified in its success, where the I'm going to give you a little and hope that you'll reciprocate approach of influencer engagement was quantified in its success. But the most successful method from sales to managing complex multi-person operations was to take an approach where you climbed up the chain of command by asking for advice, because people love to talk about themselves, and it's a great way to build relationships and credibility and rapport, and incidentally you get free advice that way too. People in the venture capital world sometimes say that if you ask for money, you'll get advice. But if you ask for advice, sometimes you'll get money. I have certainly for a long time used asking for advice as one of my tactics to engage with people. Nate Angel, who is the leader of our marketing and sales organization, his official title is Doorman at Little Bird, just today was reminding me of an early interaction that he and I had where I reached out to him to ask for a quote for a story that I was writing for Read Write Web, because he was an expert in the world of education technology. And I got a great quote from him. We went back and looked at it and we were like, wow, that's a great quote. And now years later, we've developed a relationship where I'm lucky enough to get to work with him, and it's awesome. So asking advice is a great one, a great tactic, in addition to trying to add value and reach out and touch people with the structure of social media, be it @replies or blog comments or what have you. And then the last little bit of borrowed wisdom that I've been real excited about that I want to make sure to share was in that last category of measurement and management tools and strategies. How do you know if these tactics that are focusing you on your particular chosen areas of focus are really helping you make progress towards those goals that you identified in the first part of that strategic thinking? And in as much as one of those goals, some people believe that the most prominent goal is learning. How do you know that you're really effectively learning through your engagement with online influencers and experts? And sometimes I sit around the house and I think, I would like to learn more about learning. And I say, Little Bird, go out and find me the world's 500 leading experts on learning and tell me what they're most excited about. And one day I found a fantastic article written by a man named Chuck Frey, who said that he believes learning consists of 5 steps. First, of gathering information. Second, of discerning whether that information is worth keeping. Third, 4 steps. Forgive me. Assimilating that information into your worldview. And then fourth, utilizing that information in a Bill O'Reilly style, let's do it live kind of context, if you will. So and I'm hoping, I almost had that one assimilated well enough to know that it was 4 and not 5, and now I've utilized it, so hopefully I have learned that. But I think that in as much as you're doing research and trying to ramp up quickly in the markets where you're working with clients, or you're trying to create content, or what have you, and you're leveraging influencer engagement and outreach as a learning opportunity so that you can more credibly create content and build relationships, you can ask yourself, am I really learning this stuff meaningfully? And I think that's one helpful way to measure progress through that, to see how far you've progressed through that gather, discern, assimilate, utilize experience. And so I thought I'd share that with you in case that was useful. But that is the truncated version of the last 2 parts of A.G. Lafley's 5 questions that any good strategy should answer. Don't be afraid to use it at home. What do you want to make for dinner? A.G. Lafley will help you figure out. Don't tweet about it or Dave will make fun of you, but it's a great strategy. So with that, I want to transition into the second part of our day today, and that being really more about Littlebird in particular. I've told you little bits about my experience of living amongst the tumbleweed and covered wagons up in Oregon, and using data to try to compete with other bloggers who are hustling down here in San Francisco in the Silicon Valley, able to talk to real people and not just read RSS feeds and tweets. And a lot of those experiences and strategies have informed the building of the technology that we now call Littlebird, that I'll show you. What I'm going to show you is not the current version of it that's available in private beta right now, but a sneak preview of the new version that will be available in a few weeks. That is super, super cool. And then I want to tell you a little bit about our API, where we make influencer identification and categorization and hot content discovery available programmatically for integration into your own applications, or filtering any kind of stream of information. And I'll show you an example of the first time that we've done that in a big way so far. So with that, I will transition out of slide land and over into the web. I wanted to incorporate this in my slides. I'll just show you for fun. It's a American Express looking, credit reports looking image called a reputation statement of account, that said, imagine if your reputation was tracked like a credit score by creating a Wikipedia entry or editing Wikipedia entries, downloading songs legally, blogging, what have you. And that's kind of cute, but that was an image made by the Institute for the Future in 2004, which made a little light go off in my head to think I should see what the Institute for the Future is working on today. For one thing, because that's pretty prescient stuff. And so I will refer to my Littlebird report on futurists. I should have pulled that up. But instead, I'm going to show you some of Nate's reports. Because the research I'm going to show you here is stuff that we were able to pull together using Littlebird so quickly that I didn't even have time to do my own. Nate ran these reports in minutes before we walked into the room today. So for context, consider that. Originally, I had been being hired often by PR agencies to do influencer discovery research manually, because people would say, I don't want to do this, it takes too long, and I don't really know, I think Marshall could do it better, faster, and cheaper. And it was fun to sit in a coffee shop and build Twitter lists for hours at a time, but it was only so scalable, and it did take a long time. It takes a long time for anybody to do manually, but it really wasn't, there was a rational process, much of which could be automated. And so that's what we have done now. We've built a robot that clicks all the links, that looks at all the social graphs, and says, here's what we've found. So some examples. Nate ran a report today, let's cross our fingers, live demo of preview software. Here's our report on the NetApp community, for example, where we have gone out and crawled across hundreds of Twitter accounts and then made contact with other additional social networks that I'll show you in a minute. And we've said, okay, everybody in the NetApp community, who amongst your peers are you paying the most attention to? And coincidentally enough, at NetApp is the one that all the other NetApp people are paying the most attention to, followed by Vaughn Stewart, an evangelist at NetApp, and this fellow who is at the office of the CTO, et cetera, et cetera. So the first deliverable that Littlebird serves up are these lists of peer-reviewed subject matter experts and influencers. We've said, okay, we surveyed all of the HTML5 experts that we could find, all of the data storage experts we could find, in this case, all the NetApp experts we could find, and we said, who do you listen to the most in this situation? And here you can see that set of people. We can click to remove organizations and just show individuals. We can sort them by a number of different criteria, like show me the newest, freshest ones that are already getting a bunch of peer validation. Show me the social media veterans, the ones that listen most to the others. And one of the things that I'm really excited about is in this new iteration of the system, we have not just Twitter, but additional social networks. So here's a lanyard profile of every...
Scroll down to Sam Moulton on the bottom right. Yeah, Samantha Moulton.
Samantha Moulton does a great job.
A lot of different networks.
There we have found profiles from Samantha Moulton, all kinds of places, including LinkedIn, my personal favorite, where we can see then all of the different groups that she participates in and engage with her not just on Twitter but on other networks as well. So that is the part of Littlebird, other than the additional social networks that people see today. But in this new interface, how many people in the room have been able to see Littlebird so far? Anybody been able to test it? Okay, great. So if you've been able to test it, you know that there's a number of different ways, tools that we provide that'll sound familiar after the conversation that we had earlier, tools for engaging with these influencers. And what we've done in the new interface is to surface all of those right at the top of the page in a dashboard type style. So here, for example, are the hottest articles being shared by people in the NetApp community. And I can bookmark a page full of that and see the hottest articles today and this week. Interesting. Yep.
People are very focused on Bill Gates today.
Yeah, Bill Gates is hot stuff. Let's see. Let's jump over. How about a report on Porter Novelli? So again, when running reports on particular companies, the company themselves are often the biggest leader in the field. Here in content marketing, you can see that it's Guy Kawasaki that more content marketers pay attention to than any other. Jason Falls being number 2, and Lee Auden being number 3. So in addition to discovering all the top people and providing the hot news, and that's the interface, that hot news interface that I was talking about when I said, when I was telling stories about using programmatic methods to do the heavy lifting around finding quality content and let other people and machines do that grunt work so that you can jump in and just skim the cream off the top and say, I'm going to engage with and share this and this and add value to it. You're obviously not the first person in the world to discover that news, but chances are most of your audience has not heard this information before. They're not reading the thousands and thousands of tweets and shared links that our system is monitoring for hotness, automatically in a particular niche. And so there's a real opportunity for you to be, if not the first person in the world, the first person in their world for your audience, and then repeat that process over time, and you can build all kinds of social capital that way. So in addition to those sections of each report, we've got a brand new one that we're super excited about. If you've seen Littlebird to date, you have not seen this, and this is our network graph visualization, where inside, in this case, the Porter Novelli world, for example, there are some communities that associate more closely with each other than they do with others. And we have analyzed those connections and visualized them in such a way that you can come through and say, you can look at individuals in those communities, or you can say, show me what is that community right there. And that big red one looks like that's a group of people that cluster together inside of Porter Novelli with each other more often than others. And these are the most prominent members of that community.
Just out of curiosity, since you guys probably know more about Porter Novelli than we do, are you able to look at that and assess quickly why that grouping of people might be put together?
Yes, and those are peers of ours in New York and in Europe. And Josh actually is someone here in our office. But yeah, you can visualize it and see how it makes sense pretty quickly.
So it might be a geographic affiliation?
Yeah, and it is popularity. I mean, I would say by far the folks there, are more visible and more vocal as far as the company goes or the agencies go through Twitter.
So if I was, let's see, that's another one. Let's look at the NetApp visualization. If I wanted to reach out to, probably a better example would be on a topic like content marketing or data storage or what have you. If I wanted to target some outreach to influencers in the data storage universe, I could look at a network graph visualization around there and see it's not that this is a one-headed monster, but rather that there are some real distinct subcommunities inside of this topic. And if I want to have a broad effect in my outreach, I should figure out who the leaders are in each of those different communities. I might look to see who bridges the gap between different sub-communities, and if I've got limited time and resources, to focus it on those people that bridge the gap across multiple different sections. If I've got a sub-community that is way off on the side and is really disconnected from everyone else, I might know that if I want to reach those people, I'm going to have to go out and target them very specifically because they're not engaged with the rest of that topical community. For example, we've run a report on gun control, for example, and seen the big community of people having a conversation and focusing on gun control matters. And there's politicians and media as one swirl in that graph, and then there are gun control advocates in another swirl that are interconnected, and then there's the NRA that everyone is paying some amount of attention to, and then there are gun control critics, critics of new legislation in favor of gun control, and they're way out separate, away from everyone else, not engaging in conversation and connection with everybody else, which we thought was pretty interesting to see just mathematically that part of the conversation was really isolated and not conversing with others. And so a message attempting to reach that audience can't go through the normal channels that would reach the other communities that are interconnected, but instead would need to be targeted towards their individual leaders or that that community and conversation. So those are a couple of the first few features on the new version of Little Bird. There's a couple of others that are super cool, but before I show them to you, wonder if anybody has any questions about those ones.
Were you just using the keyword NetApp for that, or can you narrow it down even more to like cloud or whatever it may be, and then
For
narrow it
sure.
down for there?
So in that case, that was just a report on the topic NetApp, but you can certainly run reports on cloud, on data storage, on probably mobile cloud. One of the things that we encourage people to do is to experiment, zooming in and zooming out as much as they like, and you can find, you discover different things on different things. And it's probably not very common to run reports on a particular company. It's probably more common to run a report on a topical community. But since we just got those network visualization graphs, we thought it would be intriguing to look at examples of those in a company. Let's see. I want to show you what is a good other example. So here is, I'll show you a report on big data, for example. I've got bookmarked the hot news pages on a bunch of different topics that are of interest to me. I just threw them in an Evernote page, and I'm reading about VCs and CMOs and HubSpot and what have you. But in the world of big data, any guesses as to, we'll see who the number one person, the big data expert most followed by other big data experts, who they are. Oh, there we go. Okay. Yep. Hillary Mason of Bitly. Yeah. And then Claudia Emhoff down below. It's nice to see a woman at the top of that. We've got a show only people filter here where we can remove the organizations if you want to just see the people. We've been experimenting with a gender filter as well, so we can surface just the top women in any field. And we had that we were testing for a while, but when we ran a report on the Republican Party and it said that Glenn Beck and Sean Hannity were the highest ranking women in the Republican Party, we said back to the drawing board with the gender filter. But someday that will be there too. So, okay. So there's that. Hopefully that answered that question, that you can. And I'll show you how to zoom in even more narrow with another feature, our custom search engine, in just a second. Any other questions about what I've shown you so far?
Well, I may have a question that you're about to get to, but if you could talk to influence over time, which is kind of what you've been alluding to, versus influence today. Like, there may be a topic that's very news-driven, that's very topical. You know, take what's happened in Boston as an example, where you may have some folks that are on the ground chronicling what's happening, and therefore their influence as a source is very, very important today, but may not be over time. Is there insights we can get through Little Bird for that?
The closest things that we can do for that right now, let's see, I'm going to...
As a corollary to that, it's kind of like, the decay of influence. I mean, there's an article recently, not to bring up the K word cloud, but how people like Mitt Romney who've done nothing over the past 6 months still have, quote, influence, but they've literally participated in no conversations online at all.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, let's see. One of the factors that impacts that relative to Little Bird is that we generate all of these reports on demand. They're not static. Well, today they are static, but they're on demand. So you come through and say, I'm interested in this subject. We'll tell you, we'll show you some examples of the kinds of people that we think are relevant, and then it'll take about 5 minutes to go out and crawl the social graph of all the live connections. So hopefully that'll speak to the temporal nature of things to some degree. We do have a feature called our emerging tab that I just got an error message on that will show us the newest accounts that have received the largest amount of peer validation. And now that we're rolling out this second iteration of the product that includes multiple social networks beyond Twitter, the network visualizations, both of which I've shown. The other big feature that we haven't got live yet is the ability to track influence, changes in influence over time. So we'll be rerunning that social graph analysis each night, and we'll say all eyes are now on these people more than they are on those people, and we'll show the delta to see who's going up or down. In the case of the Boston situation, just tactically speaking, one of the things that I did in reference to that was I went and ran a Little Bird report for influence around Boston and Twitter, and found a bunch of influential, just day in and day out Twitter users around Boston that were peer validated, and then I exported all of that into a Twitter list and had a Twitter list of 250 or so people, and the ones that were updating real actively that one scary night in particular were the ones that were, many of them were on site or reporting otherwise. And Dick Costello, the CEO of Twitter, thought it was a good enough list that he retweeted it back out to people and said, here's a good way to watch what's going on in Boston at the time. So those are that's the best I can tell you right now, and hopefully it'll be even better in the future.
One more question before you move on.
Yes, for sure.
Hey, so this was actually a question from Chad Hyatt, who's in our New York office. He wants to know, some of the examples you've shown are more broader examples that have wider fields of conversation. In particular, how does Little Bird handle narrower areas of conversation, like, for example, a rare disease that only a certain number of people have?
Neuropathy.
If you can't pronounce it, I don't know if we can use it as an example.
Sorry.
So we've certainly seen some reports run. We've run some reports ourselves on some fairly obscure conditions where there are people who are specializing in those conditions and who are active online and are connected to one another, and thus whose community we can map out the connections between to see who the most connected nodes on those are. But sometimes it can just get too specific in order for there to really be that kind of active connected community for us to analyze the social graph. And so what we do in that case is we refer people over to one of the tools that we've got called our custom search engine. Well, that's no good. Let's see. Let me pull up a fresh one that should work out well. So back when I was working as a journalist, one of the things that I always did was grab a hold of any list of good sites around a particular topic that I could get my hands on. People would say, here are the best blogs about youth marketing, or here are the best English language blogs about tech in Asia. And whenever I'd see a list like that, I'd think, would I like to search against that list sometime in the future? I bet I would. So I'd grab all those links and I'd throw them into Google Custom Search. And Google Custom Search gives you, lets you create like a little mini search engine that searches not the whole web at large, but just inside of a finite list of websites. And so I could go and I could say, whoa, YPulse just got acquired, or there's some other news in some particular niche topic. I want to see what the top experts in that particular field have said about that company or that person or that concept in the past, and I'd go and search not against the whole web at large, but just inside of the finite number of websites that I'd already collected as great sources on this. And at Little Bird, we do that with every report that we run. So in the world of data storage, for example, we've run a report and mapped out all the most connected leaders in the field. And then in addition to being able to watch their hot news and do some other stuff that I'll show you in a second, one of the things that we do is create a custom search engine that lets you search inside of the archives of the blogs and websites from the top experts in the field. So to answer that question, and maybe I'll be able to demonstrate it in a second, what we suggest if you're looking for something really, really specific, and is first to give it a try, to experiment and see because if there is a connected community out there and we can start with one or two good early examples, then we'll spider out across those people, and if they're connected to a community of specialists, we'll map that community out. But if there's not, then what we'll need to do is we suggest that you zoom out a little bit and say, who is it that talks about that subject? Maybe there's a particular type of medical specialist that discusses that condition amongst many others. And so we suggest that you run a report on that broader subject and then use there's NetApp at the top of the data storage world, then use our custom search engine to say, show me what these people have written on their blogs and websites about this subtopic. So if I want to see what, I don't know if data storage, or if I want to see what the top experts in the world of data storage have said about mobile device management, for example, that's real easy to do here with the custom search engine that we've created. So a couple different examples of how we've seen people make that work are we've got one customer that's an individual PR agent that told me a story recently about getting ready for a strategic planning phone call with a client that was about to launch a new product into China in the online security world. And so he ran a report in online security, and we gathered together all of the top experts in that field. And then he said, show me what they've written on their blogs recently about China, and was able to get a list of blog posts from just those top online security experts, scan down it in just a few minutes, make some quick excerpts, and then jump on the strategic planning phone call and say, well, here are some of the other companies and the controversies and the subjects of conversation that top social media experts around online security are discussing right now with regard to China. And the client said, wow, we are so glad that you were on this call. We had no idea that you knew so much about online security in China. Thank you for doing that. So we've seen people do things like that. We've seen people use the custom search engine as well as all the different tools to prepare for pitching a prospective client where they can run a report, then think about some specific topics, maybe including the client, some related subjects, and they can drill down into the archival content of those top experts and say, show me what the top education technology experts have said about this particular company and this particular market. And then they can go into the prospective client and say, well, of course we're familiar with the market that you're in. We follow all the top people on Twitter, we read all their blogs, and yes, we are conversant on those particular matters. We've read the key articles, and we can surface those really quickly by just automating the heavy lifting of knowing where to look. So we can analyze the connections between people to determine where to look in order to find the best stuff, cut out all of the time that you would have spent on that, and just lead you right to the best place to engage with the best content and the best people in order to do your work.
It's more of a technical question, but that archive that you're building, is that based on links that folks have included in their tweets to posts that they've published? Or is it scraped from some other source?
That would be interesting. That could be another way to do it. Right now, what we're doing with our custom search engine is we're looking at the profiles that people have online and looking at the URLs that they associate themselves with. Mm-hmm. So if we had indexed my profile someplace, we would take getlittlebird.com and throw that into the custom search engine and index that and let you search against it to see what that website has said about a topic, for example. But there's lots of different ways that we could do it in the future.
And then just how far back are you guys going on the search there? Like what's the...
It should go back all the way through the history of just about anything. I mean, I haven't seen a limitation of how far back the spider can crawl. And it happens pretty quick. I'd like in the future to be pulling in social media content as well. Tweets and LinkedIn updates and what have you. We haven't figured out a way to do that yet because the data there is much, much bigger.
2 more questions from remote folks.
Okay.
One more from Chad. He asks, can you manually add in influencers that may not be showing up? And just to get it queued up, the second one is from Moses, and he's asking, what about Spanish-speaking conversations and Spanish language influencers?
So in answer to the first question, right now it's easy to add people at the beginning to say, don't forget about this person and this person and this company if you like. And it's easy to remove people at the end. And I hope that sometime real soon it won't be too difficult to add people at any point in the process. We do enable you to export all of your data in a spreadsheet, at which point you could certainly add people to that as you keep track of all the influencers that you want to reach out to and collaborate, on a spreadsheet to keep notes on folks. And then the Spanish language conversation is something that, because we are focused on social graph analysis and not content analysis, we're not looking at the words that people are using. We're looking at the connections that people have made out of their own self-interest, voting with their feet. They've said, I'm a dentist, and these are the dentists whose tweets I want to read. And we say 9 out of 10 dentists recommend those dentists right there, or CRM experts, or B2B salespeople, or whatever the case may be. So we don't need to understand the words that people are using, because the math of a link between people is universal across the web. Similar to the way that Google said, Yahoo can't scale building a search engine of the entire web through manual creation of a catalog where people go and look at the websites and say, this is a site about fly fishing. The web is just growing too quickly, and Google said a much more scalable and reliable approach would be to look at the links between web pages. And so too, we think that looking at the links between people is a much more scalable and reliable approach to indexing even content that we don't that we may not be able to read individually, at the company, but that our customers want to be able to use that analysis of the structure of social media in order to read content in any kind of language that's of interest to them.
You might bring up that example of the Haskell community and how it found the Japanese community.
Yeah. One of the things that we've noticed with, maybe this speaks to that, I don't know. One of the things that we've noticed with the network visualizations now is that there are definitely geographic clusters around a lot of communities. It was Japanese folks that were a big part of the Haskell programming language community. And then there's also there's a big Japanese contingent in the mind mapping community. We definitely have found big Spanish-speaking contingents in different communities. I saw what looked like a pretty good report in Arabic a few weeks ago. I didn't really know, but it looked good. And so language isn't an issue, and by focusing on that social graph analysis, we feel like we've seen that we can discover more and better influencers around any of these topics. If you go, for example, and look at a Clout topic page on data storage, for example, I was looking at in reference to this NetApp research. Clout will give you 25 subject matter experts on data storage, and a Littlebird report on data storage brings back 300 peer-validated experts on that who may or may not be using that keyword. And if you search for the phrase "Clout says I" in Twitter, you'll see people who find comedic value in the assertions of categorical or category-based expertise that Clout asserts that they are experts in based on their analysis of their content. So looking at people's content gets messy. It has a lot of limitations. but we're able to, we think, jump past that by looking at social graph analysis. Speaking of social graph analysis, the last feature that I should probably show you two things, but one that's really intriguing from the perspective of business and competitive and market intelligence research, I think, is what we call our compare function, where first we run a report and we discover all these connected people in, for example, data storage, and then I might come in and type in the username of, it might be my username, it might be a sales prospect's username, it might be a competitor's username, it might be someone I'm considering inviting to speak at a conference. Anyone whose social capital I want to analyze in the context of the leaders in their field. And we'll compare their connections to our index of top people. So in the case of NetApp, for example, I can see that this is a ranked list of all of the top people in data storage that are following NetApp. And this is a ranked list of all the top people who are not following NetApp on Twitter. If I was marketing for them, I might see this as a ranked list of priorities of thought leaders to go out and engage with because they're not yet following them. If I wanted to determine just how savvy someone might be in their particular field, I could see how influential they are and the nature of their influence by those top graphs. But if I wanted to know just how savvy they were, I might look at the graph below that shows me who they are following amongst leaders in the field. And we've had people come to us and say, we're evaluating this company, and we're trying to figure out is the company and their leadership, are they hip to social media? Are they savvy in their own field? And we can run a report in the field that they're looking to engage in, put their usernames into this report and say, well, they only are following one or two of, they say that they're really into marketing technology, but they're only following one or two of the world's 500 leading experts in marketing technology on Twitter. So maybe, take that into consideration. And then we show the most recent connections that have been made with leading subject matter experts, so I can know what your most recent emerging interests might be within this field. And we show the very first people that you connected with, so I can get a feel for your provenance, and you can learn about where someone comes from by seeing who the very first thought leaders and experts that they connected with and that connected with them were. So we think that this is just the first iteration here of the kinds of insights that can come out of analyzing different permutations of people and companies and an index on thought leaders on a particular topic. But we think that it's pretty darn useful already. I often use, if I am working on something and I want one of the world's leading experts in that field to, if I want to ask them for advice, or I want to ask some favor of them, I'll run a report on that topic. I'll put my username into this compare page, and I'll get a list of the top people that I can send direct messages to because they've opted into following me. We've worked with clients before who've said, I really want to connect with someone at this prominent organization. And we've said, well, we'll run a report on that organization, then we'll put your Twitter handle and some other Twitter handles that you're associated with into the compare page, and we'll see who the most prominent people in that organization are that you're connected with already on Twitter. And today this analysis is around Twitter. Like as we saw earlier, we're now making contact with LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, SlideShare, a number of other social networks. But there's something especially magical about Twitter and the fact that that following and follower data is right out in the open. Unless we're friends, I can't know who you're connected to on LinkedIn because the data privacy model is that way. But on Twitter, I can know who you're following and who's following you and who's following them. And there's some really intriguing opportunities that arise out of that. So the last thing that I would show you as features go is our export functionality, where whenever you run a report on a topic, we make it super easy to export all that data. You can export it as a Twitter list, and we can either say, give me all the top 300 experts on data storage, or you might say, I'm really just interested in the 20 most emergent, or I need really reliable information from veterans in the field. Give me 100 of the oldest accounts. Most of the time I just export the whole list, though, as a way to engage with those people. I have taken to agreeing to speak on any topic publicly now, just because I know that I can run a Little Bird report on that topic, read the hot news, use the custom search engine, and before we had some of those other visualization features, export all of those contacts in a Twitter list, stick it in Flipboard, and spend a few evenings flipping through the links that are being shared by the world's leading experts in that field, and pull out great examples of a thesis to speak on, and come across as really informed really quickly. We additionally offer an OPML export of all of the top blogs that you can stick in no longer Google Reader, but Feedly or some other RSS reader. And then you can also export all that data as a spreadsheet, a CSV or Excel file. So that is where Little Bird is today, and a little preview about where it's going in the future. But at the heart of it is this idea that we can look at the connections between people in order to see where all eyes are looking and engage there ourselves systematically, really efficiently, in order to glean the benefits of engaging with early adopters and subject matter experts, so that they'll promote our content, but also so that we can win the benefits of engaging with them, learning from them, developing credibility through our engagement with them, and so that we can leverage them and their content to really efficiently research the state of the art, the state of the market, the state of our competitors, and gain what we think are some of those next generation opportunities afforded to us by a more sophisticated, more advanced, more ambitious engagement with social media, instead of just seeing it as a one-way promotional channel and nothing more. We think there's a lot more out there. So,
Thanks, Marshall. I know we've got about 10 minutes left, maybe. So I know this is a big topic, but one of the things I was interested in hearing more about, I think some of these other folks are as well, is just some thoughts on the Little Bird API.
yes. Oh my goodness. Oh, I'm terrible. Oh.
I wouldn't say that.
So we've got an API for programmatic access to all of this data about subject matter experts, hot content, and more. Hopefully, this application that was built by, in this case, I hope this is not a dirty word, but by Wagner Edstrom, will come up. They came to us just before South by Southwest, and they said, every year for the past 3 years, we partner with a different startup that's got a technology that we think can add a lot of value to the South by Southwest experience, and we think that Little Bird would be a great way to do that. And we said, we think so too. How about we make this the first example of use of our API? And so what we did was we said, okay, South by Southwest is a totally overwhelming torrent of conversation and news and noise and self-promotion, and it's just crazy. It didn't used to be that way. I first joined Twitter in order to try and find, to break news at South by Southwest 7 years ago or so. I told myself, this is the dumbest website ever. As soon as South by Southwest is over, I'm canceling my Twitter account. This is worthless. People are tweeting about what they ate for lunch. And then just 12 months later. But not so, only so much longer and I was a convert and convinced for sure, to such a degree that I ended up writing a blog post titled "Twitter is Paying My Rent," because I was able to break so many news stories and get so many tips, ask for advice from so many people, get so much redistribution, have so many people discreetly say, "Hey, buddy, there's a misspelling in your headline," whatever the case is, that I really felt like a substantial portion of my income was directly attributable to Twitter. And it led to a situation where if you Googled for the phrase "paying my rent," for a while that article was the #1 search result. And I got a lot of very strange phone calls from people that said, "I'm having a hard time paying my rent, and I was wondering if Twitter could pay my rent too." Well, but now there's lots of people that believe there's huge value in Twitter and engaging with it and the stream there, but there's so many that it's absolutely overwhelming. So what we did for South by Southwest this year was use our topic level expertise discovery to say, okay, let's say you're at South by Southwest and you are really interested in 3D printing. You're not interested in all that other stuff. You came here with Bree Pettis for the MakerBot keynote. You're a part of that community. I don't know. I would say I don't know anything about you. I don't know who you are, except now we've discovered who those people are, what kinds of people are into that. And what we did with Big Fish was offer a filter where we said, first, bring us the world's 500 leading experts on 3D printing or space exploration or website design or marketing agencies. And then we used that as those lists of people as a filter over the river of news coming out around South by Southwest. In particular, the hashtag tweets. And we said anytime one of the top experts gets mentioned in or uses a hashtag tweet, we're going to grab that and associate those experts with the South by Southwest event. And then we're going to see who got the most traction each day and over the week at South by Southwest. And we created effectively a sort of a tech meme for any topic and a leaderboard to see who was getting the most traction at South by Southwest on all of these 30 different topics. So these were the top experts in 3D printing and the hottest content from those experts. And we did that. Every couple of hours that analysis was rerun, and we could see the big data breakout hits at South by Southwest, whatever the case was. And then there was some additional functionality that we built on top of that that allowed you to log into this site and see how much traction you were getting at South by Southwest. And every time you shared content that got picked up and reshared by other people, or every time you got mentioned by someone else who was at the event, your ranking would climb up. And every time you got mentioned by one of the world's leading experts in a particular field, as determined by Littlebird, your ranking would go up even further. And so people would come and they would log in to see where they stacked up in this universe of all the South by Southwest participants. They'd come for the ego draw, and then they would notice that there was this great utility there to filter all of the noise around particular topics and just see, who are the must-know people and the must-know content in these particular topics at the event. And they would get into a cycle where they'd say, I want to come back and see how much traction I got, and I want to know who I should go out and engage with in person and online. And we saw people checking their scores on a regular basis over these 6-hour periods where we would publish morning, noon, and night. And it was pretty awesome. And it was the first example of a way that Littlebird can say, don't be afraid of information overload. We'll show you who the most proven, trusted, significant specialists in a particular field are and help you draw out just their content or even just their hottest content so that you can have pinpoint accuracy knowing who and with what to engage with, even at one of the biggest events of the year there. So we hope that that API is going to prove really useful in a whole bunch of different contexts. And part of what we're here in San Francisco to do is to talk to different people that might be interested in being a major partner in using our API for, there's any number of different possible use cases. And we hope that, I hope that people will always visit our website and use it on a real regular basis. But when we think about the value that is there in the form of a layer of subject matter experts being put on top of lots of other websites and lots of other people's applications and projects and stuff, we think that may prove to be the biggest and most valuable application of what we're doing.
So I think it's a really interesting model, and just know from your history that one of the things you've done in the past is kind of set up those topic aggregators even for B2B conferences. But really, like, here's the guide to the conversations coming into the conference and the conversations going on during the conference. Is there something here for that? So you think about, South by Southwest is such a kind of logorrheic display of just so much, truly information overload and so much noise and, often very little signal. And I can see how this was useful for that. Could you turn the lens of this onto a smaller, super focused B2B conference, like say it's a group of semiconductor influencers, that really are there just to talk shop, and they do use, social networks, but not quite at the scale of a South by. Is there a way you can think about applying something like this to really helping them find the conversations bubbling up in those 3 or 4 days?
I think so. That's the kind of thing that we could work together on to figure out. There may be an additional step that needs to be taken, in this case, why do people come and check it out while they're crazed on Boston barbecue or what have you? It's because of the ego draw in part, and because of a big promotional push that got put onto it. And maybe at a smaller conference like that, there's some other kind of creative application of expert discovery and hot content discovery that makes the most sense. Perhaps it's using this kind of technology to say, here are the things that are being talked about at the conference, and here are the world's leading experts who have also talked about the same thing, even if they're not at this particular conference, or even if they're not posting online. Or here's some history of the influence of the person who's speaking on stage right now, and a picture of their ascent over the years, or I don't know. There's a lot of I think there's probably a lot of really neat different permutations of that data that we could think of. And I have built a number of different content aggregators over the years, and it's following. And I've built a lot of them based on keyword too, and it's been really frustrating. I was hired by Sun once to build an aggregator for their big conference, and they said, we want a hot content thing for 15 different keywords, and they were things like Java. And so we were doing it by analyzing content. So we had to go in and put in these queries like Java, but not Indonesia, not coffee, and not this, and not that. And then stuff would still get through, and it was just maddening. But we figured our way through it, and it ended up real good. And in that case in particular, at the end of the project, the person I was working with said, Marshall, I've got one other module that I want you to build, but it's got to be top secret. And I said, okay, what's the secret? And she said, the keyword is Neil Young. I said, no. Okay. So we built an aggregator for Neil Young news, and I didn't know why. And a couple of days before the event, she said, I'll tell you the secret. Neil Young is going to be presenting at the event for the first time ever his collected life works on Blu-ray that's going to have multimedia assets like recording notes and then updates pushed to it over the years. And since you've worked so hard on this aggregator, we want to fly you down to San Francisco and let you interview Neil Young. And I said, all right. And it was awesome. But man, was it a lot of hassle trying to build those keyword-based, content-based aggregators for that hot news. And the payoff of getting to meet Neil Young and having a really big consulting contract with Sun that year were good, but in the future I'm going to do it different. And we're going to start with people and look at the connections between people and offer it programmatically, via an API like we've begun doing now, instead of doing it that other way.